You're listening to Joy Coaching America with the Joy Coach, Karyn Lynn Grant, spreading upbeat, uplifting, informative messages of hope and happiness from sea to shining sea, from our home in the beautiful Rocky Mountains.
Welcome to Joy Coaching America. This is Karyn Lynn Grant, and this is such a fun day for me because I get to interview the founder of Loving Liberty Radio Network. And I am so amazed at what Kathy Smith has accomplished and what she's doing for the world with this wonderful liberty-minded radio show that airs all over the world. And so today, Kathy, I just want to have you jump right in. We're going to talk all about you, what inspired you to create this, your beautiful husband, and his legacy, the legacy you're passing on with this wonderful radio network. And so I just want to welcome you here this morning. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Karyn. It's so good to be with you on your show. I'm so proud of you and all the good feelings that you're putting out there in the universe. And it's just always a delight to talk to you. So I'm honored to be on your show today. Thank you so much. This is something we've been wanting to do for a long time, and maybe we should have done it sooner, but I'm glad to do it today. It's a good day.
It's a great day to do this interview. So excited.
You asked me, Karyn, to tell a little bit about my husband, Bert Smith, and talk about the amazing work that we're doing. You know, I really love promoting everyone else and not myself. And I wouldn't call myself amazing. I think we're all just trying to do our own part and do what we can with the tools that we've been given and the talents that we've been blessed with. And so when I met my husband, Bert Smith, back in 1975, he was on fire with the Constitution, and the bicentennial of the Declaration of Independence was coming up in 1976. And so I was just barely 20 years old, married and had a little baby boy and was expecting another boy. And I don't know when I found time to go to these Constitution classes, but I just fell in love with the principles of freedom and liberty and the things I was learning. And Bert was hosting these classes. He was a friend and a neighbor, and we went to church together with his family, and I just always admired him. And he would stand at the podium, and while he was expressing his love for our Savior and for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and in the next breath, he would talk about his love for the Constitution and his gratitude for our founding fathers. And I was just totally smitten. I thought, where have I been? I took an American history class in high school. In fact, it was an AP history class, and I pretty much slept through it. So it wasn't until, I had a couple of years of college under my belt and was on my own with a little family that I really was converted to the Constitution, is the word I want to use. Just fell in love with it. And so that's how I got my start. And Bert really set me on the course of my life. I started volunteering for political campaigns. I want to talk about that word politics. Somebody I was talking to yesterday said, it's not politics that's corrupt. It's the politicians, some, not all, but it's human nature to, look out for one's own interest. That's okay to have self-interest, but when it turns to greed and a lack of integrity, then we have corruption. And anyway, I love politics, the study of good government, the proper role of government, the checks and balances that our founding fathers enshrined in the Constitution. We're just so blessed to have those layers of government and all those checks and balances. So anyway, these are principles that I was learning as a young, 19, 20-year-old, and starting my family. And after 5 years, we moved away, and I kind of lost track of Bert and his family as we moved out of that neighborhood. But from time to time, I would take my little boys and we'd go visit his Country Boys store. Everyone in Utah knows Smith and Edwards, and it's kind of famous all over the West. So we would go in there and we'd look for Bert, and sometimes we'd run into him. We'd exchange Christmas cards every December with his family. And then after a few years, we did lose track of each other. And so fast forward to 2005, I ran into Bert. So this is, 20, 30 years later, I ran into Bert and he said, "What are you doing nowadays, Kathy?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually running for city council." And he said, "Oh, I can donate you some pocket constitutions and keep you supplied with those for your campaign." And I said, "That would be fantastic. I've really been praying for something meaningful that I could share with people as I go door to door talking about my campaign for city council." So I won that election, and it just, from that point on, Bert and I were talking on the phone a lot. He was a widower at that point, and I was a single mom. And we just renewed our great friendship. And by October of the following year, we were married. So
What year was that,
that's my
Kathy?
personal story.
That is an incredible journey. And what year was that you were married?
That was in 2006. So 30 years after I first met Bert. And we just were like two peas in a pod. I just said he was of the older, the greatest generation. He was my hero. He was a Marine in World War II. And I got to marry my hero. So Bert and I,
that is such an amazing story.
Bert and I got 10 years together, and he passed away in 2016. So the Loving Liberty project that I founded in 2018 is something that Bert and I never talked about specifically, but it was very clear to me that I was being mentored and tutored at the hands of my great hero in how to promote and defend and teach the Constitution. Not personally a great teacher, but I sure know how to find great teachers. And in 2018, we not only created this nonprofit called Loving Liberty, but we also founded the Loving Liberty Radio Network, which is an internet-based platform. You can download it on from your app store on your mobile phone, either iTunes or Google Play. It's free, of course. And we have on that network, I think, some of the finest radio hosts and podcasts that you'll find anywhere that talk about the principles of freedom and liberty, private property rights, religious freedom, the First Amendment, the freedom of expression, the guarantees that we are blessed with and that are protected by the Constitution, not given to us by government, but protected by the Constitution of the United States. So anyway, we also at the same time took a space that I owned and turned it into Liberty Hall. And it looks like a little bit smaller version of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, but it's very eye-catching with a clock tower and a beautiful facade. And in that space, we hold meetings and teach classes and host events. And we also host some youth groups that I love to have in the building, because when they come in, they see this huge monumental statue of George Washington, as well as some beautiful artwork about
Javi, how did you obtain this building, and when was that? Is that something you obtained when you were married to Bert?
Bert and I had that building. It was just a warehouse. We never talked about it being anything but a warehouse. But after Bert had been gone just a few months, I started getting some promptings that we needed this new space to hold our classes. And so thanks to the influence of some really great friends, I had some friends who served with me on the Constitution Day Committee of Utah. And I also have a nonprofit board of directors. We all, got together as a group and then individually and just said, what could we build? What could we create in this space? So I took the front unit of this 6-unit warehouse, the one that's closest to the street, so people could see it. And we remodeled the front, and we literally built Liberty Hall inside a 5,000 square foot warehouse. like we dropped a house inside of the warehouse. It has a beautiful meeting space with gold chandeliers and the George Washington statue and beautiful artwork. And then it has a kitchen and a bookstore and all the amenities you would need to hold events. So
That is incredible. And what
yeah,
city is that located in?
it's in Ogden in northern Utah.
Well, this is
So the
so
crossroads of the West, Bert used to call Smith and Edwards the crossroads of the West because people would meet there in his office. They came to Bert for, I think, encouragement and, how to stay the course and how to not lose faith in the country and in our government, but to try to, protect the Constitution and all of those principles. So yeah, Bert was a powerful influence for good and so kind. He was so kind, not argumentative. He expected a lot of his team at Smith and Edwards. He had over 100 people that worked for him, and he just built a wonderful enterprise, as well as, and this was right after World War II. So Smith and Edwards was founded in 1947 and then moved to its current location in about 10 years later. At the same time, he was building a ranch in Nevada. So he's a cowboy. He's a real honest to goodness cowboy, a handsome
what an
cowboy.
amazing
Yep.
story. And we're going to be right back.
From sea to shining sea and beyond, you're listening to Joy Coaching America Worldwide with show host and Joy Coach, Karyn Lynn Grant.
Welcome back to Joy Coaching America. And today is such a special day. We just had Pearl Harbor Day on December 7th, which was just a couple of days ago. And I wanted so badly to do a show to commemorate those heroes that have fought for this country, that have been patriots. And I'm so grateful, Kathy, that you are here with me today, that you're paying honor to your husband, who sounds like such a wonderful, kind, amazing patriot and patriarch who has not left your side. He may have passed through the veil, but I can definitely hear, and I'm getting tingles as I say this, that he is so close to you, and that influence that he had you've still done wonderful things together, even though he's been on the other side of the veil, which is so thin. It's so close. Our loved ones are so close to us. And that leads us to the story of how we met, because that could have been nothing short of a miracle, I think, how you and I met and how we found each other. I had been up in Ogden for 4 years. I could have met you then. I had worked for Myers Mortuary as an independent contractor doing grief work. Mostly it was just a service that I did, doing Joy in the Morning, MOURNING, a day of healing up there with the Myers in Brigham City, Ogden, Roy. And we never did get to Layton because they didn't have a place in their facility. But I went there to pay tribute to my patriot father and just drove up to Ogden one day, had no friends in Ogden. And as I was driving there, the words came to my mind: there are treasures here for you in this city. Come to find out that my grandfather was born in Ogden, that my great-great-grandfathers owned the Wright Brothers department store on Washington Boulevard before it became a sushi restaurant and a block full of other things, but that there was a whole history. And going to the Daughters of Pioneer Museum, I looked up one day and I recognized the man on the wall. And I said, that's my grandpa, Angus Taylor Wright. And as I walked over closer, it was his father, William Henry Wright, and they looked almost like identical twins. And so I just fell in love with Ogden. went and visited the cemeteries. I almost said seminaries, the cemeteries, and visited the headstones of all the people my grandfather had ever talked about, never knowing that they were in Ogden. So I just felt like I was rubbing shoulders with my ancestors and got so excited about working for the grieving. And I could have met you. I could have met you then, but we did have an interesting meeting years later, about 2 years ago. So
Yes,
tell us about that and what you'd been looking for.
well, Karyn, when you get me going talking about Bert, my husband, that's just a fun subject for me, of course, but he was a World War II veteran, a Marine in the Pacific Theater. And he tells an interesting story about how he was so miserable traveling from the California coast to the Pacific Theater. It was a 45-day cross the ocean voyage.
Wow.
And he was so sick and so miserable because there were so many, sailors and Marines packed into this troop ship, that he found a spot on a lifeboat where he could kind of tuck himself into this lifeboat on the deck that was, lashed onto the deck, and have his own space. And he read the scriptures cover to cover, and they didn't know where he'd gone. They wondered if he'd gone overboard. Anyway, long story short, many of his friends were transported to Iwo Jima from that ship, but he was not. And
was he in the lifeboat tucked away?
He was just on, he wasn't AWOL. He just, he would report to the chow line and report. But anyway, that, he said, probably saved his life.
Wow.
Just to find a quiet spot where he could be not below deck with, so many thousands of other sailors that, he hated war. It was awful. But anyway, and he had a young family that he'd left at home. So those stories are amazing. And I'm working on Bert's biography, and I'm excited for people to read it. But yes, so here we have this Loving Liberty Radio Network. And a couple of years ago, I started getting this strong impression that I wanted to invite more women to participate as our radio hosts on our network. And so I was talking to a mutual friend, and she said, well, I can think of a friend I can call. And it was not 12 hours later. I think it was just a handful of hours later, you called me on the phone and said, this is Karyn Grant, and I hear that you're looking for women's voices for your radio network. And I just was amazed. I didn't know who you were, and you were perfect, absolutely perfect, what I was looking for. Somebody who's full of hope and love and music and spiritual insights and just this eternal optimism for life. So it's really been a joy to have you on, Karyn. So thank you. Thanks for being part of our network.
Kathy, that's just so interesting that you were referring to Sharon Anderson, who just does such amazing work as well with the community, and her patriotism and her absolute love of the Constitution too. And through you, I have met Pamela Openshaw. We've done like 5 interviews or 6. We're going on some more with Pamela. And it's just been so wonderful to meet women of such a wonderful caliber who are doing such beautiful things with their mortality, with their earth life, and just being out there on the battlefield and raising the banner high and for the cause of liberty and truth. And so I will share that it was about the same time, right before, like for 2 months before, Sharon called me and said, Karyn, your name came to my mind in the middle of the night. I was talking to Kathy Smith. She said she's looking for a woman who can do a radio talk show who also has music. And 2 months before that, I had felt very prompted that I needed to start a podcast, but I had no clue how to do it. And I was scared to death. I just kept telling the Lord, but who would listen? And I don't have a big following because I'm not a big marketer. I just love people one at a time. And so I remember getting on my knees and saying, Lord, who am I doing this for? And I don't have a big following. And the impression came to my mind, would you do it for the one? And I said, yes, who is that one? And the thought came, me, Karyn, would you do it for me? And so I just felt like, okay, I'm going to do this for the Lord. And even if he's the only one listening, I will do and bear my testimony and share and go find those wonderful people who have amazing gifts to share. And that is my end of the story. And then 2 months later, Sharon called and I called you, and it was just amazing, which I think that as everyone out there, you may not know what your gift is. You may not know what your purpose is, but I feel so strongly that God makes amazing connections, and he does it in the most mysterious of ways and brings us together in one another's lives so that we can bring our common passions and interests and causes together. And now, Kathy, I would love to have you. We have a minute, but if you could just introduce the name of your women's group that you've been forming, and then we'll go into that more in the next segment.
Yes, last Valentine's Day, we launched a new program called the Loving Liberty Ladies. And so we have a great curriculum called Proclaiming Liberty. And if you go to our website, lovingliberty.net, you can see the ladies tab. There are videos there. We have an allies tab. You know, I just feel so grateful, Karyn, to be surrounded by great people and have good work to do. It's just such a blessing to me. Those connections mean everything. And I marvel and I'm amazed at how the Lord can accomplish good purposes, his purposes, through us by connecting us with each other. So that's what I'm so grateful for.
Me too. And I just think, oh, if there's anybody within the sound of our voices who is looking for such a wonderful group to belong to be a part of, please contact Kathy and go to her website. We will be right back after these messages. Thank you so much, Kathy Smith.
Welcome to the Loving Liberty Radio Network.
Welcome back to Joy Coaching America, raising the world's vibration to love, joy, and peace, one happy listener at a time.
Welcome back to Joy Coaching America. This is Karyn Lynn Grant interviewing our beautiful Kathy Smith, who is the founder of Loving Liberty Radio Network, right here with me today on this show so that you can hear her story and understand the passion of her heart in creating this network so that we have a liberty-minded place to go, as well as the beautiful group that she's been forming since last February in 2020, the Loving Ladies Liberty. How do I get that? All those L's in.
It's a tongue twister for sure. I know it. Loving Liberty Ladies.
Loving Liberty Ladies. Yes. And
yes.
I just am so excited about that, and so excited that so many women,
you know, Karyn,
and their husbands.
even loving liberty is kind of a mouthful, but I thought, who can argue with loving liberty? We all love liberty if we really understand what it is, the opposite of tyranny, the freedom to choose to do the right by others and for ourselves and our families. So I'm excited about the Loving Liberty Ladies. And yesterday, Karyn, you sent me a text in the middle of the day, and I didn't read it till a little bit later in the afternoon when I was free, but I just had to call you and say, Karyn, even though the story you told me about your sister-in-law, Wendy, who had passed away, you shared how you were just devastated, you and your husband, and you were fixing dinner and grieving and stopped and said out loud, am I just here waiting for my time? What is this all for anyway? Just this, grief of what's the purpose? Why has this wonderful sister-in-law been taken so suddenly? And you said, suddenly an image of Wendy's smiling, happy countenance appeared in the midst of those depressing thoughts. It was like we were sitting together, and she leaned in and whispered, oh, Karyn, it is so amazing here in heaven. You would die just to get here. And I chuckled at that, and I know you chuckled too. You said, in that moment, a gust of good cheer overcame my world of bewilderment and confusion about her passing. It was all gone. I awakened this morning with renewed motivation to be of good cheer, knowing that a merry heart doeth good like medicine. I woke today feeling refreshed in spirit, renewed in heart, eager and so excited to spend the rest of my days living worthily of discovering just how amazing it is to one day wake up and find that, like Wendy, I have overcome this world. I loved that. It made me chuckle to think that she would, of course, she's near. She's closer to you than you recognize, just like my Bert is closer to me, and all of our loved ones are just on the other side of the veil. We can't see them, but they're so near and so interested in what we're doing and supportive of what we're doing and trying to surround us with love and light and encouragement. And for her to say, you would just die to get here, that it just made me laugh. So we can laugh. There
was comic relief in that message that came into my mind. A little bit later, I was really pondering, because this message of good cheer, be of good cheer, I have overcome this world and live worthily, so that you can say the same thing and pass that message along and to someone else when your time comes. And I just want to leave this world with good cheer. And that's the whole purpose of why you even asked me to do this radio show, was Joy Coaching America, that in the midst of troubled times, that we are here with positive, beautiful, uplifting messages to encourage people to find your gift, to resolve, to be about love. And I have to tell you, Kathy, that after that whole interaction, I had to jump in my car and run an errand. And a car pulled in front of me with a license plate that says one word on it, agape. And I thought, agape, isn't that the highest form of love? Like, isn't that a Greek word? And so I got to a stoplight and I Googled agape, and there it was, pure charity, being about pure charity. And there I was led all the way to my destination with that agape word. And I took a screenshot of it to remind me that, boy, these messages come, and they come in nuances. And if we are aware, we can receive messages from heaven. I really think that heaven is not far away, and our loved ones are so close by. And I love the inspiration that Bert has given to you to create Liberty Hall and these beautiful radio shows that you are doing with so many people, and your love with for Sam Bushman, and the beautiful dinner commemorating his 25 years of radio syndication, and your influence, the influence of a woman who is just spreading far and wide, and the ripple effect is amazing. And as for Wendy, what was so difficult about that loss for me is that she was close to my age, 5 years my senior, but a grandmother, and so full of love and life and happiness and joy for her children and her grandchildren. And it was just, it left me feeling, well, what are we all here for? What are we here for if we're just waiting for our turn? And I really had a dismal attitude And I had passed a plaque in my front room that said, faith also includes having faith in God's divine timing. And I picked that plaque up and I carried it to Dell because this was his brother's wife. And Dell was just devastated by it as well. And we both just looked at each other and said, you know what? Divine timing. We just need to understand that there's so many things that God has just that are divinely timed, like our meeting, Kathy, that was divine timing too. And so a message that goes out today is look for God's divine timing and be about your Father's business and look for ways to serve and share agape and be about pure charity and do everything we can to lift this world. Everybody is going through a crucial time. Kathy, have you noticed that everybody's seems to be, if they're not going through one, they have a loved one who is?
Yes. And I tell people, I've tried to practice this myself, to just turn off the noise. There's so many conflicting opinions, and I just don't need to have my heart stirred up, and it's so divisive, and I just turn it off. I like having a quiet home, and I'm convinced that music, Karyn, is so important and so critical to helping to heal our nation and the world and to soothe our hearts. It's the unifying universal language of love. And so that was the other thing I was so grateful to you for, is the music that you brought to our network. So we just need to hold on to the quiet and the peace and the comfort that comes from our Savior and from that place of just peace and quiet. So anyway, thank you for all that you're doing with Joy Coaching America and your lullabies for children and your positive attitude, and just your heart is connected to heaven. And I appreciate that so much.
Oh, Kathy, thank you so much. I do believe there's a beautiful song by Sissel. If you've never heard of Sissel, oh, Sissel is wonderful. And she says that whenever somebody comes to a home in Norway, that they greet their friend and their loved one with a song. And there's a wonderful song by Sissel that says, the title of the song is Like an Angel Passing Through This Room.
Yes,
And
I love that.
it's just, we're all angels on errand here. We're all passing through this room and doing our best. And I'm so excited for you in the next segment to share about what plans you have for 2022. We will be coming back right after these messages. This has been a wonderful interview, Kathy, with you, hearing of your passion for the Constitution, your love for your husband, your calling him your hero, and commemorating the beautiful veterans and those who have fought for this country. We just had Pearl Harbor Day, and I wanted to do a show. So I'm so grateful that you were able to bring Bert's service to his country into this and how his life was spared so that he could go on doing wonderful things for the world. We are so grateful to you, Kathy. Thank you. We are Joy Coaching America.
Welcome back to Joy Coaching America, raising the world's vibration to love, joy, and peace, one happy listener at a time.
Welcome back to Joy Coaching America, where we have been interviewing Kathy Smith, who is the founder of Loving Liberty Radio Network, right here on this very own radio station that Kathy owns and has enlisted the help and the beautiful words and all the amazing things that so many people have contributed to this radio network. So here we are, Kathy, and I would love to just have you share with what you are doing, great plans for the future. I know you just had a wonderful luncheon with Daughters of the Utah Pioneers yesterday. Love to hear about all the amazing things that you are engaged in.
Well, Karyn, I'm excited about 2022. You know, when 2020 came, I think we all thought this is going to be such a great year. I know I did. 2020 is going to be so great. And in March, in fact, I remember the very weekend, I remember what I was doing. We were hosting Alex Newman, who's a great political pundit, I guess you would call him, researcher, writer. He's just fantastic. Anyway, Alex was here in Utah and we hosted him at Liberty Hall, but we had to practically cancel our meeting because everything locked down for COVID that weekend. And we didn't know, as Americans and as citizens of the world, what we were getting into, and everyone was truly fearful. And at that time, I was listening to Sissel, who you just mentioned in our earlier segment, the Norwegian soprano, who sings a song. You mentioned her song, Like an Angel Passing Through the Room. She has another song called Slow Down. And I played that song over and over and over again. I must have played it hundreds of times. Some of the lyrics go, slow down, be still, and know that he is God. I just would recommend that your listeners go to Sissel's website, Sissel. She's fantastic. So here we are now, looking forward to 2022, and we are going to host an event on February 12th at Liberty Hall that we hope your listeners who live in the Utah, Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming region will come and join us. We are going to have an event called Finding Hope Through Love, Light, and Truth. And one of our speakers will be you, Karyn. In fact, you'll lead with the subject of love. And then, so I'll let you speak for yourself on that. We're excited about your talents and your musical ability and your insights and your heart for heaven. Then we're going to have Kendra Burton, who is a wonderful artist, come and talk about light and how she infuses her paintings with light. She does beautiful seascapes and still lifes and portraiture and paintings of the Savior. I just can't wait for our people there on February 12th, our guest, to meet Kendra. And then we're going to finish the evening with Pam Openshaw discussing truth. And Pam is the author of Promises of the Constitution, and you've had her on your show several times. She's just fabulous. So we're going to have a really wonderful Valentine's dinner weekend event on February 12th. And I'm just so grateful that you're willing to be part of it, Karyn, and your husband, Dell. And we will we'll post an invitation online on lovingliberty.net this weekend so that your listeners can register. We only have room for about 80 people. So the event will sell out quickly like it did last year. And then maybe we'll record it so that we can share that with a wider audience after the event. But anyway, that's what's coming up on February 12th. We also are looking forward to having Larry Reed, the President Emeritus of Foundation for Economic Education, on Constitution Day, which is on a Saturday this year, September 17th. So we'll have a July 4th event. We're just looking forward to having something going on at Liberty Hall, sponsored by Loving Liberty and the Loving Liberty ladies, probably every month in 2022, God willing.
Oh, I'm so excited for all these good things. You know, I think we all crave companionship. It's like being able to see people out, and resiliency, the resiliency of America and of people coming together in righteous causes. And just how exciting is that? Oh, I am so looking forward to seeing Kendra's work. I love Pamela Openshaw. She's become a very dear friend now after 5 wonderful interviews with her. And this is going to be a wonderful event and something to put on your calendars right away. And if we can record that, those of you who are outside of the states that Kathy has mentioned, you will also be able to partake of the inspiration that will be there to feast on. So Kathy, thank you.
Well, Karyn, I invite your listeners to go to kendraburton.com. She's got an amazing website. And then you should go to Sissel's website too. I just went there this morning. That song, Slow Down, was really my theme song for the entire year of 2020. But her website talks about the slow down movement, and she shares best ways to slow down from people all over the world. It's really beautiful. And then she's, of course, has some teasers to her music on there too. What a wonderful, she's been here in Utah. You know, Sissel sang with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir on Temple Square a few years ago. I think it was 2019. So anyway, I'm excited. Just
I love that song.
Good things happening.
I was in that audience at Temple Square when she sang that song, and she got a standing ovation for that. I think it lasted for minutes. It was absolutely something that we all were so hungry to hear. And then that song became a theme song for several of us during 2020 when times became tough. And oh my gosh,
we all had to slow down.
We did slow down. That was very prophetic of that song that she sang in 2019 in December. So beautiful. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Kathy, as we continue to, there are messages to inspire, to urge people, discover your gift and find your cause. I remember on a show that I did with Pamela, she said, you know, you can't be a part of every project. You can't join every cause, but choose your cause. Choose something that you can dedicate your heart to. And I love, Kathy, what you have dedicated your heart to. And it is causing such a ripple effect when you think about the power of one good woman to do so much good for a hungering nation in need, and the ripple effect that carries on because of your decision to create a radio program, whole radio network called Loving Liberty Radio Network. We celebrated Sam Bushman. We had such a great event with him this last year. And as we wind up 2021, what wonderful things people have done to persevere in the course of adversity and to just show up with their gifts intact and continuing to bless one another. I would hope that as we enter into 2022, that we will take that vision of spreading love, light, and hope to a world in need beyond America, to all of our neighboring communities. Do the good that you can in your own community. Think of ways to serve, discover your project, think of the cause that you want to be about, and go forth to do that. And Kathy, do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I echo your enthusiasm and optimism. There are just so many great things happening, so many wonderful people that I get to work with. On our lovingliberty.net website, we have our podcast list, and I'm just looking with really humility and just so proud of all of these people. But we have a podcast called Heroes and Heroines by Larry Reed. We feature the Kate Daly Show every weekday in the afternoon. Nathan Osman has a podcast called Achieving Awesomeness Now that everyone should listen to. Chris Ann Hall has her podcast on our network. Moms for America, they're doing an amazing work around the country. Moms standing up for their children, their families, and their freedoms. We have Dinesh D'Souza's podcast. We also feature Beth Ann on CSE Talk Radio every morning at 9. And Karyn, she opens her radio show every morning. She's at 9 o'clock here Mountain Time. She's located in Missouri, so Central Time, but she opens every show with prayer. And it's so inspiring and heartwarming to know that we're gathering together as women and families, and of course we don't exclude the husbands and fathers and grandfathers and sons in our world. We love them too, but it's just so good to know that we're not alone. We're not alone. We are connected. Even if we can't be in the same room with each other, we can be connected over the internet. And I just love the opportunities that the Loving Liberty Radio Network gives us to do that.
I'm so grateful that you shared that and all the wonderful aspects of Loving Liberty Radio Network, because there are so many people that are hungering for community and don't know where to go to find it. And I think that you sharing these things, if you heard anything that Kathy just shared, how beautiful that you can find community right here by just going to your app store and clicking on just typing in Loving Liberty Radio Network, downloading that app. It's a beautiful little red icon on your phone, and just connecting to it and listening in. Sam Bushman, doesn't he have a show every morning at 8:00 Mountain Standard Time?
He does. He starts at 7 a.m. actually, 7 to 9, 6 days a week. And we couldn't do this without Sam. We're just so grateful for Liberty Roundtable and Sam Bushman. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kathy. This has been a wonderful interview. I'm so grateful for your time, for all that you've created, and a shout out to all those others who are participating in your network. And everybody, join us on February 12th. This is Karyn Lynn Grant with Kathy Smith, Joy Coaching America.